All right, all right, all right. Episode 249. I'm just kidding.
Son, son.
We're excited. We have an incredible guest today, Tony Mueller from Sandpoint, Idaho, with Gwen there on the RV Cabrina tour. And Tony's a magical human because we'll go more in depth, but to long story short, I would just say he's kind of pioneered what it is in that vicinity of Idaho. And, he just took on wing foiling and went to another level with it. And he can kind of share with everybody his thoughts on, what inspired him, what troubles he went through, what learning curves he went through. And so we're really excited to have him on the show today to go more in depth on that and just inspire people. And he's inspired us. We have an incredible video of Tony, so make sure to look on the YouTube channel of his kind of sessions in Sandpoint, Idaho. And again, we just want to thank everybody out there for tuning in and supporting the channel. And obviously, we're super grateful for Gwen, who makes all these incredible videos to inspire people. And so let's get to it. So today we have Tony. Tony, thank you so much for being here. And let's get started. And so, Tony, give us a little background. Yeah, give us a little breakdown.
Oh, well, just with the history, or
yeah, like I would say let's start with like how did you like get into wing foiling? And I think you're gonna be, it's gonna lead us to like how what you did before. So how did you get into wing foiling, and then how did you end up in Idaho?
Well, I think with the wing foiling, it all started. I mean, back, I've always been around the ocean, and I lived in California, and I raced kayaks and surf skis in California and in Hawaii. I did that for 15 years and kind of got bored with that. And then the stand-up paddleboarding thing kind of kicked in around 2004, and I had back surgery. So I was using that to kind of rebuild my core and get strong again, and did that for about 10 years. And then as the foil came along, and being a stand-up paddler, I figured I would do some downwind surfing with a foil, because I was doing downwind surfing with an SUP. And so I kind of went that direction. And then I kept seeing that, well, okay, they're coming out with these wings, and you really couldn't purchase them at the time. It was all just kind of starting. So I continued trying to do the downwind, both here, when the wind would kick up and get some waves. And I wasn't too successful at that. And I did try it at the gorge. I didn't spend a ton of time on that, because I really started to see the wing coming along. And I always wanted to try kiting or windsurfing. And I was so busy with my other sports. When you're doing well at a sport and you're maybe winning some races and you're traveling and you're having a good time surfing and everything, it's like, okay, how do I fit all this in? And then I kind of got to the point where I wanted to get away from the stand-up paddleboard racing. I was kind of getting burned out on it, and decided to finally retire and move up to Idaho. And I said, well, I'll just paddleboard up here and see what's going on, and I'll try the foil thing and go back to the gorge in California. I tried a little surfing with the foil. And then when the wings came out, I looked at the lake and saw the wind, and that really that's when the bell went off and said, make it happen here. I mean, the equipment's going to get better and things are going to progress. And that's how it basically, I didn't think I would ever do this many days out on the water doing this sport. I thought I'd be traveling more. So I just hit it as hard as I could and bought as much as the equipment that I needed for here in light wind conditions. And it's just worked out way beyond what I imagined.
So let me get this correct. You had no wind experience before this?
No, I sailed small, like an international, a sailboat.
Okay.
And I actually had gone out on down in Santa Cruz, California. A guy I worked for at a kayak shop had a trimaran hydrofoil. It was produced by a company, and there was a foil engineer that built it. for the public to buy. And he said, we need to go out and demo it. And he took me out, and I was like kind of pretty much blown away how fast we went. We actually broke one of the foils. We were really going pretty fast. We were lucky to get back to the harbor, but it was like, I've never experienced that kind of speed and floating over the water like that. So that was kind of in the back of my mind, is how can I get myself to that point of doing this again? You know,
so you were kind of drawn in because of the foil side of things, like the fact that you could.
Yeah, it was, I kind of like the old school stuff, but I want to jump in where there's the new technology. I don't want to miss out, you know? So I saw it as, you know, just really try to figure out what's going on, do all your research, and I think it'll work. I mean, I even looked at some of the little mini hydrofoil sailboats for possibly up here. But it kept drawing me back because of the surfboard and the surfing and being on something very small. You know, I mean, it's so high performance for me. You know, it's just the next level.
And how old are you, Tony?
I'm 61.
Going on 25, and you're about ready to do backflips with the wing. Is that the deal?
Yeah. So this is something like definitely like people need to know about Tony. Is like he's like so dedicated. I mean, one, he's like, every time there is a windy day, for sure Tony is out there. And two, if there is no wind, he's probably like doing some research, learning about the equipment. He always like, I learn from Tony like all the time. He's telling me about like foils and stuff, where like for me, it's almost like I would write anything. But Tony's like always like looking, you know, what's the latest information about all of it. He goes to the beach, and then he tell me like he was watching our videos on how to do something. That's what's really cool about Tony and like winging, is like he's like 100% committed and always like learning about, you know, how to make everything, like the gear better, how to get his technique better. And the cool thing is like, I think, Tony, you should talk about like your board, because Tony took I think it was like a stand-up paddle and like cut it down and basically made his own wing foil board. So like, tell us about that. How did you come up with like the design, because you keep refining it as well?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the stand-up paddleboard racing days. When I first started doing it, you could only get a 12-foot surfboard, and I talked to other surfboard manufacturers, shapers, and say, I want this and this. You know, I'm looking at racing, and I'm looking at ocean riding, and you know, I did a lot of downwinders in the kayaking, and that was such a blast to go 14 miles. And you're basically surfing for 2 hours. You know, you're averaging 7 miles an hour on a paddleboard and faster on a surf ski. So I started researching and talking to people. I think it was Swaylocks, about how to shape boards and everything else. And so I found a guy that made blanks in Southern California. I'd go down there and pick a bunch of them up and come back, put them in the garage, and I'd start shaping, and I'd go out and surf one of my old boards, and then I'd come back and kind of change the design. And I just figured, well, you know, the other guys can screw up and have to throw one away here and there. That's fine. You're still not failing. You're learning as you're going along and shaping and watching other guys and kind of looking at other designs. And then you know, once you get to that point, it's like you're addicted to it. I'll chop something up even knowing it may not work, but I can't do it without saying like, well, if you didn't do it, you don't know if it is going to work. That kind of thing. So when I saw the boards getting shorter and shorter, and I'm a longboard guy. I mean, I have my old surfboard, which is 14 feet long. That was my go-to downwind surfboard. I won a lot of races with that. And then
he beat Chuck Patterson in a stand-up paddle race. If Chuck is watching,
many years ago, the first U.S. championships that they had stand-up. So he was right behind me, but. So anyways, I had this 14-foot downwind board, and I used it for a surfboard. And it's like, that board I'll never get rid of. That thing was a blast. You could do anything with it. So when I got into the foiling, and everybody's like, shorter boards. And, you know, I just had some old I had an old carbon race board that was 14 feet long, and I remembered, how to shape boards. So I just started chopping them down, and I chopped 2 of them down and went from there. And I'm just kind of pushing it down to where I find my comfortable zone with different boards in different conditions. I want to have a board for the lake when it's really light, something that I can really pump and get up on practically no wind, and then have a board that I might go to the gorge with where it's just going crazy and things built like a truck,
If you were to give somebody right now that's like sort of in your shoes, let's just call it they're 55 to 70 years old and they're super fired up to try something new and learn, is there something or a board size or something that really helped you in your learning process? Because you obviously learned the hard way.
Yeah, I did a lot of work and spent a lot of money. And the thing I would tell people, and I told people this too, when they were getting ready to learn to kayak or whatever, I was also a kayak instructor. I got certified by the ACA, and they would ask me about things, boats, boards, all through this whole thing. And I said, take it, it's where you want to go. Do you want to improve and want something more high performance later on? So go ahead and get something that you may not be too comfortable with. It might be tippy. You might fall off a lot at first, but a couple more sessions out, you're going to go, hey, if you're going in that direction, you're going to get to that point where then you're not trying to sell a board and buy the next one up kind of a thing, which is going to happen a lot of times anyways. But I've talked to other people and I've seen them get on boards that are, tippy and things like that. And they said, well, yeah, eventually I'll figure it out, and that's the thing. It's just trial and error. And you can get to that point by, just putting the time in, I think.
And so obviously you went through some boards, you built some stuff, you learned it, you went through some crazy challenging conditions. And obviously, we can tell that you have a mindset of let's learn from my mistakes and build from that and challenge yourself. I think, this goes to everybody out there that's following along and listening, is truthfully, anything you do, especially wing foiling, kite surfing, whatever it may be, you need to kind of add that little bit of challenge to yourself to enjoy it. And we get this all the time, but people comment literally nonstop about, I got out on the water, I could barely hold the wing, but I came back, I'm super tired, I'm like super stoked. And they didn't even do anything, but they just went through the process of the first part of learning. And I think, I guess my question to you is, you're on lakes and a lot of people ask us, they're like, hey, can you do this? Where can you do this? Well, Sandpoint, Idaho, I would say is not necessarily the most ideal, perfect, steady wind conditions. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tony, and describe the place and the kind of condition we get here.
Well, it's what I want to say about it is yeah, when people say if they wanted to visit here and go wing foiling, like what happened with Gwen the other day, showing up and having the wind, I said that's like the perfect storm for you. But most of the time it's like, it's like a big wave surfer waiting for the big waves. It's like, okay, what do I do now? I'll go ride a bike. I'm working on a board. I'll do my glassing schedule or whatever around if the wind's coming and Gwen's showing up, okay, I'm not going to start glassing the board. It's like I live 10 minutes away from the lake. So I have that advantage where I'll be sitting there at home and I just drop everything and go. So yeah, this lake especially, can be very challenging, but then also, I think also wherever people are at near the water, if they really study the weather and things like I have here. I look at the airport, it's pointed north and south. So you're going to get, like here we get southwest winds, northeast winds, and you learn after a while what is going to work and when it's going to blow. Northeast winds in the morning, sometimes southwest winds in the afternoon. I've had sessions where I went out and the wind stopped from the east and then it turned around and blew from the southwest. Nothing in the forecast. So it could be frustrating, but it's also a fun challenge, to try to read all of that.
Yeah, actually, if you look behind us, you might see some trees out there and the branches are moving. So it's pretty hard to sit right here because it wasn't in the forecast, but it is blowing, and one of our friends is out winging right now. So
Yeah,
that's life here.
I apologize, Tony.
20 miles an hour this morning.
I apologize for doing this, but it's windy, and the only time that Sam
we'll get it
windy.
this weekend.
And that's the thing, is like here you just never know. You know, like the forecast might not show anything, and then you wake up in the morning, you check it, and it's windy. But yeah, for most part, it's always in the morning or later in the afternoon, never really in the middle. But for sure, it's gusty, and you never know like when the wind is gonna drop. So and then we didn't mention it, but I lived basically in Sandpoint for 4 or 5 years, so I did get to like kite foil actually quite a bit. I didn't wing foil there. I wasn't wing foiling back then, but the thing about it is like the wind might drop at any time, and I mean, I came back swimming, came like kite falling. I would come back swimming over like 60% of the sessions. And that's when I see like winging as an advantage, because I mean, it's not nice to be like swimming, dragging your kite, your lines, you are on a small boat. But if you are winging, Tony would always be like, when the wind would die, like he would be the one coming and rescuing me, because he would make it to the beach way before me. Has time to like get a drink and come back get me, and I'm still swimming. So winging is definitely like for lakes, and when the wind is super inconsistent, gusty, might drop at any time, winging is definitely the sport that like can really be a game changer.
What would be the first tip, Tony, that you would give somebody if somebody's never tried it before? Would you say go buy a wing, fly it? Would you say see if there's wind at your location? What would be the first thing you'd say to somebody out there that's maybe around your age or hesitant to do this? What would be the first thing you'd recommend to them?
Yeah, well, obviously the first thing wherever you're at is really study the weather. And you learn from that, obviously, and that's the first thing. And then I think, I mean, I had one person nearby that sent me a message, and his question was about the wing size. And he says people were telling him, too big of a wing is going to hit the water. And I said, yeah, but in this area, you need something for all the different conditions. So, and he was starting out on an SUP board. So I would tell people, if you want to try it, I mean, you don't have to jump right to the foil thing. You could, if you can find a wing somewhere or borrow a wing or buy a wing, just get on a board and kind of get the feel for it. It might get you in the area where, you want to progress and, spend more money and start looking at boards. You can find used stuff out there. But I think just probably getting on a board, standing up somehow, using the wing, and, just to see if you really want to do it. And I think that'll get you kind of pulled in, because it's probably one of the most incredible feelings of all the water sports that I've done. I thought stand-up downwind paddling and surfing was like awesome, and it is, but this is like, there's a whole nother level there, and it's going to get, if you really want to do it, it's going to get you addicted to it, and you're going to want to, keep progressing. So, you might go out and buy a wing that's in the mid-range, and you're going to use it, especially if you want to continue on with this. And then eventually, if you want to go with the foil, maybe possibly find a way to be towed behind a boat and learn how to do it that way. That's basically how I learned to control the foil, was just to spend, 20 minutes behind the boat, going back and forth, practicing turns and just getting a feel for it.
So Tony, like you learn on a lake where like nobody else was winging. So how was your learning process? Was it like, very slow? Like describe a bit of like how it all happened.
Well, I thought it was going to take me quite a bit of time. I first started because of the surfing thing, and I did go to Santa Cruz and catch a few waves down there. And I talked to Jeff Clark, from Half Moon Bay, and he was out there with a foil board, and he says, well, I was hard at it for 11 months. So that right there told me, okay, well, it's going to take some time. So I knew getting behind the boat was the best thing to progress on time, to cut down the amount of time to learn. So my first time on the boat, yeah, it was kind of frustrating being towed and understanding. And I just did touch and goes and finally popped it up, and I fell a lot. But I'll tell you, my second time, my brother was driving the boat, and he goes, man, where did you get all this? And I think that your mind will work with your body when you start doing this stuff. And it's kind of like putting the experience in a bank, and you're able to bring that back up when you get back out there. So those earlier mistakes get kind of erased, and then you move to the next thing. But I would say, it's like my first spring being out there towed behind the boat 3 or 4 times. I was like, okay, this is working. This is really cool. I thought I would spend a lot more time being towed behind the boat to figure it out.
And then with the wing.
Yeah, I just looking at the wind here, and I only had at the time, I only had like a 4-meter wing. So it was very rare to even go out here, but I told myself not to foil, just stand on the board, ride the wind. The wind was light, and just practice balancing, because it's like you're standing on a log that's going to try to roll you off on some of these smaller boards. So I was using the wing and then to get your stability and not actually foiling. And then once I got going faster and more wind and different wings, I was able to foil regular foot, but I couldn't foil back goofy foot. So I left the board on the water. And then so each session, there was one new thing to go to. And I think that's what helped the most, because after that first session where I actually got up on foil regular foot, I'm like turned around and go, okay, I'll get back to the marina on the board only. And then the next session I said, okay, let's go up goofy foot. I'll fall. And all of a sudden I was getting more stability, and I was like, well, where's this coming from? And the only thing I can think of is, your brain is working with your body and your muscles, and you're figuring this stuff out. And then once that door opens, it's like, okay, let's go to the next door and open that one up. Check that box off. Check that box off.
Yeah. You know what? I like what you said here. I mean, that was very informative, but I liked that you said that your first time maybe behind the boat on the foil was like a disaster, sort of. And then the second time, all of a sudden, your brother's like, where'd you get that? And I think that's super valuable for people to hear, because I mean, I just look at myself, like even back when I started kiting, like I actually enjoyed body dragging, and I put the board on my feet. I was like, that's way too hard. It's going to take forever. I was like, I'll just body drag, and it's like, there's those stages. But once you do ride that twin tip, or you do fly the wing or get that feeling, like it doesn't just disappear. It's there. You kind of lock it in. And I think that's a good point, because I think that just shows how much value you have when you fly a wing on the beach, or you fly a kite on the beach, or you put a little bit of time with, like you said, just ride the board on the water. You don't need to foil, just ride it around. I mean, we get that question a lot. Do I need to throw a foil on? I don't think you need to throw the foil on, but I always say you can still have the foil underneath and just idle along and learn how to balance on the log, like you said, which is a great analogy, because the log wants to throw you off, no matter what your skill is. But I think that's a really good analogy for people to just, take the baby steps and build your way in it. And it sounds like that's what you did in Sandpoint.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people these days, I think Dave Kalama said it that way too. He said, hey, you got to take the early steps on. You just don't jump in and do big wave surfing and get towed into something with a jet ski. You're going to mess yourself up if you don't have that experience. And that's probably across any sport. Just the more foundation work you do, then people come up and go, oh, you make it look easy. Well, it hasn't been easy, but now it is easier, because you did put in that time. And people need to not be intimidated. They need to go out and say, yeah, let's just get on the water. Like you said, you got the foil on, you got the board, just go out and cruise, and then you'll be surprised,
Yeah, what I loved about like what Tony was saying in the video we posted a few weeks back was like how Tony you were saying like you would just like go out in any type of conditions. It might rarely be ideal, but out of every session, even though it was not, it might not, seem to be like a successful session, in the end, you always get something out of it. And it's so important to go out, even if, whatever, the wind is too light for your wing, or the wind is too strong for your wing, or the wind is not consistent, or it's all super valuable. And even just floating around, practicing your balance, in the end is going to be like helpful in the long run, and get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that also comes back from the stand-up paddle surfing, because there was days where, my friends, it's all stormy, junky waves, and they're like, oh, I'm not going out. And I said, I am. Nobody's out there. And I said, let's just take it on. And it's like I'm catching waves, and it's not glassy and smooth, and it's hard and it's difficult. But after a while, it's the same thing now here with these gusts. I love it when it's gusty, because that makes such a great challenge. I told a friend of mine here, and I said, I turn on the gust. I'm going from gust to gust. I'm going across smooth, glassy water on foil. Plus, you get to practice pumping. You get to the next gust, and then do your turn quick and come back. And hopefully you stay up on foil so you can get back to the beach. If not, okay, so you drop into the water, right? And you can't get back up on foil, and then it's totally dead, and all you're trying to hold this wing up. Well, then I lay it down in the water, flip it upside down, lay down on the board, and go, okay, and now it's time to do prone paddleboard workout, and that again will make you stronger for wing foiling, right?
And physically, we get this question a lot from people. Is like, physically, they're like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm, not in the greatest shape or whatever. And I look at, like, I would say I see a ton of people. Obviously, there's harness hooks and things you can ride hooked in, but I still see tons of people that all complain that it would be too physical. Now, there's no question you can just sit on your board and relax and take a break and get up and start again or try again. But I see a lot of people, as they start to get it, not using, they just hang on to the wing and they cruise, because I think you learn this finesse and they just cruise. But I'm just curious to think, like, to ask you physically, like, I mean, do you see, I mean, for sure there's limitations for some people out there, but I would say in general, it's a physical workout. But is it, like, did you ever feel like, it's just way too much for me, or no? I mean, do you feel like anybody could technically do this?
I think so. I think if they spend the amount of time. Now, of course, I came, with the paddle boarding and the kayaking, I already had it kind of set up to where I could hang on to that wing, and I knew how to ride the boards and things like that. So I think it depends on the person's background, but if they're in decent shape, they'll just take shorter sessions maybe. Don't get frustrated and totally like burned on the thing and that kind of thing, and just keep practicing. But I think it's like, I'll be out there and I'll get tired. I'll be going upwind and it's like, oh, my shoulder's hurting a little bit. I've been hanging on to this thing. And so I'll go downwind for a little bit and kind of coast. It's kind of like doing reps, maybe weight training or something, and then go back upwind again, and then maybe go back to the beach and rest. And it always helps. What I've found, it's always helped me to take a break and then go back out. It's like I'll come back in, relax, have some water or whatever, a snack, go back out, and I'm like super relaxed, and my turns get better and everything else gets better. So, if you're tightened up when you get out there, that kind of a thing, and then I get loosened up. But I think for most people, it's going to be just getting used to doing it, and your muscles are going to get built up where they need to be built up. And I think over time, if you stay consistent with trying to get out as much as you can and do things like that, you're going to be fine.
Did you hear that, Gwen? You're not supposed to ride for 6 hours straight. You're supposed to take a break.
Oh yeah. Yes. Well, this guy here, he's like, I said, well, I'll go out for a couple hours, and I end up going out for like, oh, we covered 40 miles today. It's like GPS says 40 miles. I go, oh yeah, we've been out here for 3 hours,
Well, and then what's cool about here, like, Tony, talk about like the winter riding conditions.
Yeah, well, that was, I mean, we both got dry suits, and then as we got into winter, I kind of set a goal for myself to do every month of the year. And I knew there was going to be an ice sheet out there probably in February. So I said, well, I may not make that month, but getting closer to spring. But the trouble is they lower the lake 10, 11 feet or so. So you're exposed to, well, for one thing, the cold, ice, snow. I mean, you got a dry suit, which actually works pretty well. I enjoy doing that. But your sessions are shorter. You're going to get cold hands, maybe cold feet. And I've had the wing ice up on me where I've like had to stop in the water. Water's warmer than the air. So I'll put my hands in the water and get my gloves wet again instead of being frozen and knock the ice off the wing. But the sessions are shorter. But yeah, it's just, for me, it was another challenge to see where I could take it. I mean, I've seen so many videos of guys surfing up in Alaska around icebergs and stuff. Things like that. So I figured, well, let's take a shot at it. I see what's going on out there and, let's try that. But yeah, it's definitely a big challenge in the wintertime. Pilings out there in the water, you have to know where to be and go, and it, can mess you up.
What would be, if you had a dream session right now, what would Tony's perfect session or future maybe thing that you want to do in wing foiling? What is something that's like on your bucket list that you're like, man, I love this sport and I'd love to do this with it? What would that be?
I think just getting better. I mean, I'm practicing different like tack turns. I'm starting to do some of those on my toe side, not my heel side. And then since I used to do so much downwind racing and surfing, that I want to get better at doing that and just letting the wing fly free and pumping the foil, even on the little swells that we can get here at the lake, especially when the wind's blowing hard, we can actually get some pretty decent swells. So I think just continuing on and getting my ability better and being more relaxed out there in all conditions.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we always kind of make these, videos or live casting sort of to inspire, which you're hands down, one, a pioneer, two, very inspiring because it opens the door that anybody can do this. Not to mention, I just love your energy of, look, every session, no matter good or bad, you can learn from it and you can always, progress, even if it wasn't a progressful session, and I think that's huge for people because people get really shut down in our world today as far as, one little thing goes wrong, they're just like, I'm over it, I give up and it's over. And I think, learning is what makes everything fun. But I guess my question to you would be, we want to inspire people and give people that tip or motivation. Is there something in life that's helped you, or a message that you could share with somebody who's maybe struggling and wants to try to do stuff, or, maybe is just struggling in life? Is there a message that you'd want to pass on?
Yeah, I think for me, the big turning point was in 2004 when I had back surgery and I couldn't walk for about 6 months before that. And I was in so much pain. And after I came out of that, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like a cancer survivor or something. You've beat that. You've gotten back to that. Okay, now let's use your body now, get back in shape, and don't look back and don't listen to people. I mean, I had people saying, you're going to build your own boards. Are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, 1 didn't work. 12 did. So my message there is just not, you kind of have to close out some people that might say, oh, don't do this, don't do that. But just listen to yourself and say, I'm here now. Let's try to do this. And you're going to make mistakes. I mean, that's all part of this whole thing. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. And then you learn from those mistakes. And, if mentally you have something going on where you just say, oh, no, it's not going to work, not going to work. Just try to get yourself in a positive place to where you can say, yeah, let's try this, or try something close to it. And then you can graduate to that if you want to, but it's like, I can't sit around. I mean, my way of relaxing is being out there now. I mean, I've always been a water person, and I just come out of the water a better person, really. And so that's that's the only thing I can tell people, is just really focus on what you want to do. And if you are struggling, just keep struggling and find ways to do things better.
Well, that inspired me. I'm ready to go hit the water right now, but Florida, there's like zero wind.
I want to be like Tony when I grow up. That's for sure.
Oh, I love it. I love it. If I weigh 200 pounds and I wanted to give this a shot right now, and I've never tried it, what volume board would you put somebody on? Because that's kind of the big talk. People always talk about volume. I mean,
yeah, well, I have a friend that's 215. And so originally, now I'm 180 and my stand-up board was 152 liters. It was 7.5 feet long, 30 inches wide. And I could do that for stand-up, and I could also do it for foiling, excuse me, or I could paddle it around. So there you go. If you can find something 140, 150 maybe. I know my buddy's going down to a 112, but he's got some experience. A 105 pretty much sinks for him. So you're going to be able to do it on a bigger board. It's not going to be maybe as high performance as a smaller board, but you're still going to have a good time. I mean, just a couple years ago, I was still on the 7.5, 152 liters, and I was doing turns and everything else. So
I love it. That's super helpful. That's good knowledge for everybody out there. Sometimes I think people try to go too short, too fast, and they struggle real hard. And it's exactly what you said in the beginning. If you're looking to go advanced, you're going to struggle in the beginning, but you'll get to the advanced.
Well, and then the other thing is, the nice part about that is a lot of these bigger boards might be up for sale used because people have advanced. They've moved to the next level and they're like, oh, I'm not going to use this board anymore, or my wife will use it or something like that, or kids. But some people will put it up for sale, or, so you might find it at a lower price, which is kind of cool because it's like passing it along, and then you use that, and if it works out great for you, keep it. If it doesn't, you can move to the next thing.
I love it. I love it. Gwen, what do you have to say? Anything? I mean, we're lucky to have this incredible human here sharing his message.
I bet.
You guys brought me along, man.
I bet it's like the first day of the year that Tony, it's a windy day and Tony's not out there. We are incredibly lucky. So thank you so much, Tony. Just a few things like thank you to Evans Brothers. We are actually, it's a coffee shop in Sandpoint. We are packed right in front of the coffee shop to get internet. So just shout out to them for making this episode possible with giving us internet. I think it's gonna be about time to jump in the post show for Patreon only. What are you? Is that the plan, Damien?
Yeah, that's the next step. So we'll jump in with all our patrons, and we just want to say to everybody out there, look, it's Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. We appreciate having inspiring people like Tony. They inspire me 100%. I mean, I live by, I really enjoy, and I know Gwen enjoys this too, but the goal for us is to inspire people to live their best life. And we say that, we truly mean that, because you don't know when your time's up, and truthfully, you got to live, and a lot of things are hard to do. And, if you can't play an instrument and you never try, well, you'll never know if you can play an instrument. So you got to try. So get yourself a wing and a foil and a dry suit and booties and hoods and go for it like Tony did. Fully just commit yourself and you'll have the time of your life. So, on that note, Tony, we just really appreciate you. We appreciate your message, and I'm sure tons appreciate it. And until next time, enjoy Sandpoint, and we'll get you guys back on the water here. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, for everybody out there, if you want to follow the next, right now we're going to jump on the Patreon only. If you want to join for that and be more on one-on-one with Tony almost, go to the link below. Patreon, you sign up for as little as $5 a month. You support our YouTube channel. if you get value out of it, and you get some you get some early release of our videos. You get access to the Patreon only live, which we are gonna jump in right now. So if that's what you want to do, it's right in the description. We thank you so much, all of you guys, for joining us. And next episode next week, I will be in Hood River next week, so we'll see who's the guest is gonna be. But I think we have some exciting stuff happening in Hood River with the AWSI event and some brand new gear coming out with Cabrina. So maybe we'll talk about this, and that should be exciting.
Yeah, we got lots of things coming up. So, Tony, thank you for your time. Thank you for your message, Gwen, of course, and everybody out there. We appreciate you. And until next time.
Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. See you guys.